Tianbao Fu Yao Lu. Chapter 169. The Aftermath of the Battle. Li Jinglong, Atai, Lu Su, and Ashinakayan gathered once more. Atai was using his whirlwind to constantly attack the enemies around them, protecting them all, and he shouted, "The Yaogwai and the humans are all mixed together. There's no way I can avoid the humans. Let's fight," Li Jinglong said, breathing heavily. And Lushan has already revealed his hand. With that, the four of them charged through the battle, under Atai's protection, who sent moving fireballs along that swept through the crowds. In the air, the Carpio was still directing the Jingwei, which spewed that energy this way and that. When it turned back to look, Liang Danhuo's shrill voice pierced through the dark night. "Zhao Zilong! You traitor!" The Carpio shrieked, shocked, and it hurriedly dodged Liang Danhuo coming after it. "Don't spray it this way. We're on your side." Ashinakayan had been in the middle of slaughtering the Yaogwai when he discovered that things were not good, and he hurriedly dodged the green light. The ground around him instantly turned into a deep gouge, which the rebels and the Yao beasts both plummeted into. Wherever the Jingwei's power of filling in the sea and moving mountains passed, nothing seemed to be able to stand against it. Li Jinglong then shouted, "Fly towards the other side." So the Carpio wheeled the bird around and flew away. Everyone was hacking and slashing their way through the rebels. The fireballs that Atai was sending every which way were too bright, causing the Yao beasts to basically swarm forth in full strength. They ignored the Tang troops entirely, pouring out en masse to face them, forming a dense circle around them. The Jingwei flew a loop around the encirclement. Even more reinforcements joined the rebels. The Tang troops' morale finally broke, and they fled in all directions. "We can't hold out any longer," Ashinakayan panted. "Let's protect their retreat," Li Jinglong said. "Liang Danhuo is almost upon us." Liang Danhuo was racing towards the Jingwei, but the Carpio was moving like lightning, its speed as quick as possible. What it found, however, was that this Jingwei couldn't hold out any longer, so it shouted, "I want to get off. Stop." At the same time, the black clouds at the rear of the army suddenly seeped forth, and wherever it passed, this devil chi would grab onto whoever was in its way, whether it was a rebel, a Tang soldier, or a Yao beast. A hoarse, deep voice said, "Go die." And Lushan appeared from within that black fog, taking the form of a lump of roiling, black cloud. He swept into the battlefield and darkened the surroundings so much that no one could see their own outstretched hand. Wherever the black fog went, the Tang troops within completely lost their wits, and they tossed their weapons away, shouting loudly as they fled in terror. When Li Jinglong saw that darkness, he yelled, "Retreat!" Upon seeing that ball of devil chi head towards them, the gathered exorcists were ready. They immediately turned and escaped out of the area that the black chi was engulfing. The rebels seemed to be immeasurably terrified, and they too fled away from the black chi. That black chi engulfed almost a whole li of land as it kept spewing meteors glowing with black flames. Even Liang Danhuo had no choice but to dodge. In the next moment, the ball of devil chi came sweeping swiftly towards them. It passed over the camp, sped over the ditch, and swept through the forest. The thousands of trees immediately withered, and wherever it passed, living people immediately became dead corpses. The exorcists sprinted along swiftly, the situation had completely reversed. "How did he get so strong?" Ashinakayan shouted. Atai called up gust after gust of powerful wind, but he couldn't scatter that devil chi. Outside the forest, the 20,000-strong Tang army had already been utterly routed, and defeat was imminent. They all fought to be the first to escape, and they climbed over each other in their haste to flee. They left behind a trail of soldiers that had been trampled to death. But even after the Tang troops turned to flee, that billowing devil cloud did not cease. It bellowed in a deep voice, "Li Jinglong." "His target is me," Li Jinglong said, gasping for breath. The fight in the Daming Palace had almost turned Lushan into nothing. The power of the earth vein in the Mingtang was almost enough to burn this devil being into ash, and Li Jinglong knew that there was no way En Lushan would spare him. Aside from Yang Kuozhong, the only other person who could even be a thorn in his side was Li Jinglong himself. On the plains outside the Shan Commandery, late at night, the 200,000 Tang troops fled in great haste. Black clouds came billowing in, and the exorcists, who were on foot, had no way to escape it, despite the speed that they fled at. "I can take someone and flee first," Lu Su said. "Quick! Who's coming with me into the sky?" Li Jinglong slowed, saying, "If we cannot stop it, the entirety of Tong Pass will be done for. All of you go, go." And saying that, he turned and pulled out the sword of wisdom on his back, turning to face the black clouds that were only a short distance away. "Zenchi," everyone shouted. "What purpose will this serve?" A Tai bellowed. Ashinakayang added, "You can't win against it in a fight." "I can only gamble on this," Li Jinglong said, panting. "I hope that your predictions are accurate, and that a miracle will occur. For my entire life, my luck has never been good. I will wager on this bad luck that has plagued me for these 20 years, also that I can win this bet." Lu Su had never imagined that a mere throwaway line he had told Li Jinglong to comfort him had actually become the last straw that he grasped at. "Go!" Li Jinglong shouted angrily. "Leave this place. I'll guard your retreat." "You mustn't." Lu Su was just about to charge towards Li Jinglong, but the black clouds had already enveloped them. Instantly, they all lost their sense of direction. All light had vanished, and what replaced it was an iciness and despair that cut right down to the bone. "Go!" Ashinakayang shouted from somewhere in the darkness. Lu Su's wrist was grabbed, and he was forcibly pulled forward. Li Jinglong stood amidst that endless darkness, holding the lightless sword of wisdom in his hand, facing those billowing black clouds. A purplish-black glow appeared at the other end of the darkness. That was the dark silhouette of a person floating in the air. Black flames swirled around the silhouette, and it spoke in En Lushan's voice. Li Jinglong, En Lushan's voice, filled with a cold pity, spoke. "I have always wanted to return this thing to you." And as it spoke, the humanoid monster made up of black flames tossed something forth. It landed on the ground, rolling along until it reached Li Jinglong's feet. Li Jinglong bent over and picked it up. That was a signet ring crafted from a gold alloy. It was something that Hung Jun had made for him in Luoyang. Too many things had happened since then, and Li Jinglong hadn't had a chance to take a good look at it. He had simply accepted it. After that, everyone had used this ring as a fake artifact, and had ultimately swapped it for the Ring of Sacred Flames during the Battle of Daming Palace. En Lushan had taken it back with him and put it on his finger. Li Jinglong gripped that ring in his left hand and readied the sword of wisdom with his right, bringing it up in front of him. He looked up to face that darkness. "Do you still cling on to the delusion of being able to save all the living beings in this world?" En Lushan's voice laughed wildly. Li Jinglong studied that silhouette, and he replied, "I do not any longer. Now, all I wish to do, is to save a single person." As dawn broke, sunlight scattered over the mountain range. Hung Jun woke up and yawned. The air of early spring was still cold, and this period of time after they left the Shiwei was the most comfortable that Hung Jun had felt since the Battle of Dunhuang. He no longer had nightmares every night, nor did he feel as if something was weighing heavily on his heart. He seemed to have become one with these mountains and forests, wrapped in the thick fur cloak that Morajin had brought. At night, he curled up by the fire, and during the day, he slumped on the grey wolf's back, dozing slightly, drifting in and out of consciousness. "Last night, I had a dream." Hung Jun rolled up the cloak and came to the stream. The grey wolf was crouched by the stream, sticking its tongue out to lap at the water. It asked, "What dream?" "In the dream, I was flying through the night sky," Hung Jun said. "My surroundings were all very dark." He knelt down and used the crisp, cold water to wash his face. He looked at the reflection of his unkempt self in the water, and he flicked his hands to dry them, before continuing. Jinglong was holding the sword of wisdom out in front of him, and there was something in his left hand. He was watching me just like that, and he said, "Hung Jun, I can't do this any longer. I've failed." The grey wolf turned to glance at Hung Jun. Hung Jun fell silent for a long while, before he thought for a bit and asked, "Why did his heart lamp disappear just like that?" The grey wolf replied easily, "Because he couldn't let things go." Hung Jun watched the grey wolf dumbly. The grey wolf came towards him and crouched down on the grass, and Hung Jun clambered onto its back. It crossed over the little stream and sped swiftly southward. "I, however, feel like he's very good at letting things go," Hung Jun said. "See, he can even throw away his own life and burn away his vitality solely for the sake of dealing with illusion." Sacrificing oneself, the grey wolf said in a quiet voice as it ran along, is not necessarily the same as letting things go. "But we humans live in this world," Hung Jun said. "And how many people are truly able to accept the reality of things? When you faced down the dream taper, didn't you also?" "And that is where the key lies," the grey wolf said, as it turned onto a different path. "I'll head along the military road, and if we get spotted, then we get spotted. We have to hurry." Hung Jun replied in the affirmative. In a few more days, they would arrive in Tong Pass. They had spent far too long away from the rest of them. "Why do you say that?" Hung Jun asked. Early spring had come, yet there was no one around to tend the fields of the north. All the land lay fallow, covered in weeds. He always gave me a certain feeling, that he didn't believe in anyone aside from himself. The grey wolf ran along the military road, sniffing at the scent of blood that came to them on the wind. Hung Jun asked, "How can that be? Every time, hasn't it been because all of us were together that?" The grey wolf replied, "You're right. Every time, it was due to all of our combined efforts that we managed to defeat a powerful enemy. But if you think about it closely, for the sake of protecting everyone, for the sake of protecting you, he won't even regret sacrificing his own life. No matter how difficult the circumstances he was facing were, he was not willing to let his comrades in arms take the risk. Though this is a kind of protection, it is also a kind of lack of steadfastness. Hung Jun, that's just how his personality is. The words that he says the most often are 'believe in me,'" the grey wolf said, lost in thought. "Trust me, we will win." He carries all of the difficulties on his shoulders, and he isn't willing to let anyone else shoulder them for him. Hung Jun fell silent for a moment. The grey wolf continued, "Sometimes, I wonder, have we of the exorcism department really gone through life and death situations together? Perhaps this is what Akalanatha wants to tell him. The Yao binding rope has gone to you, and the moon eclipse bow to me. Tell me, what do you think this is hinting at?" Hung Jun. "So, that's to say," Hung Jun murmured, "that the next artifact might go to Atai, or Yangtze, or..." The Yao binding rope was under the dragon subduing tower, and the moon eclipse bow was in the lone peak, the grey wolf muttered. These were not coincidences. Several days later, the grey wolf and Hung Jun stood at the top of a hill in the northwestern part of Shan Commandery, looking out across the plains below. After they entered the central plains, the grey wolf had taken special care to circle around the Tong Pass, passing through Shan Commandery instead, so that they could also scout out the situation in Enlushan's camp while they were at it. But what they saw was a field of desolate ruins. The entire army had retreated. Hung Jun was astonished. "They've fallen back. Don't celebrate too early." Morajin and Hung Jun walked past the camp that the rebels had given up on and came to a stop in front of the ditch. This had evidently been a battlefield. The ditch was splattered with fresh blood, and thousands of sets of Tang armor were inside. Hung Jun picked up a spear and waved it a few times, asking, "What happened?" The plains were crisscrossed in ditches and gouges, as if someone had taken a huge plow and run it without any seeming order over the entire ground. The trees in the forest had all withered, and the land, for a radius of several li around them, was charred black. "Be ready." Morajin leaped forward, turning into the grey wolf. Hung Jun hadn't yet understood, and he looked at the sabers and swords stabbed into the ground, before climbing up onto the grey wolf's back. The grey wolf swiftly sped towards the Tong Pass, and as their destination grew closer and closer, the ominous foreboding Hung Jun felt in his heart grew stronger and stronger. They did not chat. When they crossed an empty stretch of land, the grey wolf stopped for a brief moment. Hung Jun felt as if this place seemed to be very familiar, yet he couldn't say where he had seen it before. This was only a normal patch of empty ground outside the Tong Pass. Soon after, the grey wolf moved forward again, rushing towards the Tong Pass at seemingly its top speed. The mountains to either side of the pass seemed to have been burnt by fire, and the gates to the pass were open. The walls were streaked with the sooty black of smoke. No, no. The only thing Hung Jun could feel was a tingling numbness spreading up from his spine to his scalp. His voice was trembling from sorrow and pain. The guards were no longer here, so they successfully charged into the pass. The roofs of Tongtown were almost all ruined, and the training grounds were scattered with discarded armor. "Why are there so many sets of armor?" the grey wolf asked in disbelief. There was a phrase called discarding one's armor as they fled. Once two armies clashed and one side collapsed, they would throw off their armor and flee, but the soldiers who fled would only hurriedly throw off their outer armor, their scale armor. Very few of them would toss their inner armor, their leather vests, as well. The grey wolf dipped its head to sniff at the armor scattered about, but Hung Jun climbed off its back and walked towards the other end of the training grounds. The grey wolf turned its head and warned him. "Don't go too far. We have to go find where they went right away." Hung Jun walked towards the center of the training grounds, only to see two headless corpses laid out in the courtyard. These were the only two corpses they had seen on their entire way here. One of the corpses was stooped, and it was leaning crookedly on the drill grounds. The blood on its neck had already dried to a purple black. A cane was lying on the ground to one side. The other one was wearing armor, its build tall and sturdy. It maintained its kneeling position, it still hadn't fallen, despite being beheaded so long ago. The grey wolf followed after him, saying solemnly, "Hung Jun." Trembling, Hung Jun picked up that cane. He had seen this more than once. It had once been in Feng Changqing's hand, and when he had been cursing out Li Jinglong, he had lifted it high into the air. Morajin and Hung Jun sank into a prolonged silence. Hung Jun walked close to the corpses, looking down towards the wooden trough, only to see two human heads in there, Feng Changqing and Gao Xianzi's heads. Their eyes were bulging angrily. "Hung Jun." Morajin turned his head, looking into the distance. "Someone beheaded them," Morajin said. "And they didn't even bury their bodies properly." Hung Jun asked, "The pass fell, just like that? How is that possible?" Morajin replied quietly, "From the looks of it, it wasn't the rebels." Hung Jun looked at Morajin, confused, and Morajin elaborated, "With how the rebels are, if they were unable to make them surrender, they would at least leave their corpses intact, or they would hang their corpses from the Tong Pass. Or they would let them be corrupted to become food for an Lushan." Evidently, as soon as the sentence had been carried out, the rebels had invaded Tong Pass. Everyone hurriedly fled, and no one had the time to spare to bury the corpses of these two commanders. It was truly a pity that Feng Changqing and Gao Xianzi, despite their heroism in the past, had fallen in the shadow of Tong Pass just like this. Hung Jun said, "We have to bury them." Morajin replied, "There's no time to do that, Hung Jun. We aren't even sure if the others survived." Hung Jun looked at Morajin, his brows furrowed in sorrow and regret. Morajin finally relented. "All right then. Hung Jun found a straw mat and picked up the two heads, pressing them back against their necks. He cradled Feng Changqing and Gao Xianzi's heads, closing their unblinking eyes. The grey wolf dug a hole under the shadow of the pass, placing the grass mat into it. The two of them then worked together to fill in the hole and flatten the dirt above. The sky was already pitch black after they finished. Hung Jun leaned up against the wall, asking, "Where'd they go?" The grey wolf replied, "They'll be okay. Each of them is very skilled. If we head in the direction the rebels went, we might be able to find them." "Who's there?" Someone had spotted them. Hung Jun immediately startled, and the grey wolf shouted, "Quick, get on my back." A patrol of rebels had come, and they all let out loud shouts. The grey wolf leapt over the rubble, but galloping horses blocked their path. With a wild howl, the grey wolf sent the horses fleeing in a panic, and the horses tossed the rebels off their backs as they did so. "Let's go," Hung Jun said. The grey wolf restrained the impulse it felt to rip and tear their enemies apart, and it turned and rushed towards the west, leaving the Tong Pass behind. End chapter. Tianbao Fu Yao Lu. Chapter 170. A good deeds, good rewards. The world was pitch black, and devil chi billowed around them, engulfing the heavens and the earth. "There's a village up ahead." Li Jinglong pointed forward. Atai and Ashinakayan were on each side of him, and they had Li Jinglong's arms slung over their shoulders as the three of them staggered forward. "Lu Su. Still haven't found a horse?" Ashinakayan shouted. Li Jinglong's 7 orifices were all bleeding, and bloody foam kept welling up out of his mouth. The two of them were basically dragging him along. Atai asked, "How did you know that there's a village here?" "On the banks of the Yellow River, Hung Jun and I took a boat through here, back in the day." "Don't talk to him, Atai," Ashinakayan said. "He's very close to being not good." "You have to keep him awake," Atai said, half carrying Li Jinglong along. "Otherwise, if he loses too much blood, he'll fall asleep very quickly." "I can hold out." Li Jinglong's breaths were already very weak. "Lu Su!" Ashinakayan shouted. Lu Su was standing outside a desolate, abandoned village. At some point, the entire village had been razed to the ground. They were surrounded by charred and blackened skeletons, and many of the skeletons had already turned to ash. The boats were tattered and broken, moored by the side of the Yellow River, and the collapsed roofs had been burnt with such a hot flame that they had crystallized and fragmented. "Ashinakayan." "Atai." Li Jinglong was bleeding from his eyes, so he couldn't see anything. His nostrils were also filled with the smell of blood. He asked, "What's wrong? Borrow a horse, and head back to Chang'an." The two of them set Li Jinglong down. Atai caught up with Lu Su and studied this village, asking, "What's going on? What burnt this place down?" There were actually such frightening monsters in An Lushan's camp. Atai and Ashinakayan were both well-versed fire users, yet they had never seen such horrific magic. If there was anyone in this world who could raze this village with a single burst of flame, and even burn the houses and roofs to ash, that would have been the Zoroastrian god of the flames come down to the earth. Even if Atai used the ring of divine flame and cast his magic with all his might, he would not have been able to create such a high heat in such a short period of time. Lu Su stood in front of a collapsed house, a light shining forth from his palm. Li Jinglong's voice trembled. "Quickly, what are you all waiting for?" Atai slowly approached that house, only for Lu Su to immediately close his hand around the light in his palm. Atai asked, "Little Lu, what did you see?" Lu Su did not speak. He couldn't stop weeping. Instantly, a wave of horror swept through Atai's body. He slowly reached his hand out and let it glow, lighting up these ruins. Amidst the rubble, a long whip lay on the ground. That long whip was Turandik's abandoned weapon. Beneath the wall that had been burned to ash lay several scattered charred, blackened bones. At daybreak, the world was swathed in darkness. As soon as the rebels had invaded the Tong Pass, they had treated it like there was no one left to put up a fight against them. They burned and slaughtered, plundered and ravaged, killed people and set fires, bringing destruction down upon all the villages along the way. There were even Hu people racing after Han people, hacking them down for the sheer cruel joy of it. Hung Jun, with his throwing knives in hand, dashed past one occurrence, and he cut the enemy off his horse. The grey wolf barraged right through, and the two of them broke through the first dense encirclement that the enemy had set up, heading westward as they did. Why are there so many of them? Hung Jun had just crossed the military path before more hidden enemy soldiers came charging out at them, and battle cries filled the air. They're not in the same group, the grey wolf shouted. Watch out for arrows. As day broke, Hung Jun was bone-tired, but he had no choice but to raise the pentacolor sacred light to block any stray arrows from hitting the grey wolf. They had run afoul of another group of rebels, and the grey wolf remarked, "She Siming subordinates." West of the Tong Pass, the lands in Guanzhou had already fallen to the flames of war and had become the territory of An Lushan's rebels. When Hung Jun arrived at a village, he saw countless rebel soldiers currently pillaging the village. "We're approaching the front lines," the grey wolf shouted. "Should we take care of them? Or should we dash right through? What do you think?" Hung Jun asked. "If you want to, then I'll do it," the grey wolf replied. Hung Jun replied, "I want to." He really couldn't bring himself to sit back and watch as living, breathing people were cruelly slaughtered right in front of him, and he and the grey wolf charged into that village at the foot of the mountain. With a somersault, the grey wolf turned back into Morrigan, and he and Hung Jun leaped onto a roof. Morrigan drew the moon eclipse bow, and Hung Jun pulled out his throwing knives, the two of them cutting down the rebels like wheat under a scythe. With how things were now, neither of them cared about the rule of not turning their magic on mortals. As long as they saw rebel troops, they would kill them. Their enemies were all mortals, less than 200 in number, and upon seeing how mighty the exorcists were, they scattered before them. Hung Jun then stabbed down with the throwing knife, and a wave of frost swept over the village, extinguishing the fires that had blazed through. Immortal! Immortal! The residents, with their families in tow, knelt down and kowtowed non-stop to the two of them standing on the roof. Some of them then began to beg Hung Jun and Morrigan to cast a spell to bring back the dead. "Immortal! I beg of you, please save my wife." "Immortal! I can't save them, I can't save them!" Hung Jun shouted, leaping down and parting the crowd. "Go, quickly! Leave this place! Head west! The rebels would no doubt come again, and they would not be so easy to deal with next time." Morrigan studied their surroundings, and upon seeing that the dead soldiers lying about were all mortals, said to Hung Jun, "We may have upped the stakes this time around. They may send Yao Guai after us." When Hung Jun had been killing the people, his hands hadn't stopped shaking. Even his voice trembled as he spoke now. The rebels were massacring the residents with naked blades in their hand, so us using the immortal slaying throwing knives and the nailed 7 arrows to kill them, can also be considered returning a favor. I really cannot find it in myself to stand by and watch them die. Morrigan replied, "Let's go, let's make the best use of our time. We're almost to Chang'an now." Hung Jun nodded, but the citizens weren't willing to let them go. There were those with broken arms and broken legs, those hugging their deceased loved ones, and the air filled with sobs and wails as they begged Hung Jun and Morrigan to revive the ones they had lost, or to treat their major injuries. "I can't save them," Hung Jun said to them, squeezing out of the crowd. "I don't know how to bring back the dead, nor do I have any miraculous cures." Before they had left, Hung Jun had left basically all his medicine to Lu Su. Now, all he could do was watch as the heavily wounded let out pained cries from amidst the pools of blood they lay in, struggling as they waited for that final conclusion, death. There's a pregnant woman about to give birth. That is something we can go take a look at, Hung Jun said. But Mo Rajin protested, don't go taking a look. You have to find a place to rest for a while. Hung Jun thought of the pregnant Tu Reinduct. After his own friend had gotten pregnant, he had grown very aware of the feelings of a mother. Plus, it would be good if he could save a person's life. It won't delay us for long, Hung Jun said. We have to drink some water and eat something too. Where's the pregnant woman? A young person hurriedly led Hung Jun into his own room. From inside that dark room came the pained cries of a woman, and they were here trending to hear as she screamed out her unbearable pain. Bastard Tegla, you bastard! In the darkened room, Tu Reinduct lay on the bed, shouting in pain. As soon as he saw her, Hung Jun's face paled, and he hurriedly dashed out, shouting, Jenga! Jenga! Not good! It's Sayazai! Mo Rajin! No matter who they ran into, nothing could compare to the shock they felt upon seeing Tu Reinduct in this village. Tu Reinduct's wail suddenly ceased, and she asked, panting, Hung Jun? Big Wolf? How come it's the two of you? Mo Rajin went into the room, and without another word, immediately knelt down and kowtowed to that young man in thanks. This. You two, please rise, that young man said in response, a little at a loss for what to do. This was what anyone would have done. The doctor was killed, so I really don't know what to do. Tu Reinduct wailed, Aya, I'm dying of this pain. Where's Tegla? Where is Tegla? Hung Jun. Beside Tu Reinduct, a Carpiao suddenly sprung up, shouting, You've come back. That young man immediately let out a screech of fright. The carp can speak. The room was filled with chaos. Tu Reinduct wailed, the Carpiao shouted, and that young man was so frightened his face was chalk white. Hung Jun immediately made a decision and shouted, All of you, quiet. That room immediately fell silent. Tu Reinduct gritted her teeth against the pain, letting out quiet groans. Sayazai, keep shouting, Hung Jun hurriedly said. I wasn't talking about you. Aya, I'm going to die. Tu Reinduct then began to shout in the Persian language, alternating between shouting and cursing. Everything that she shouted had to do with Tegla, Tegla. Mo Rajin promptly said, Go boil some water. How long has she been in pain for? Hung Jun, do you know how to deliver a child? Hung Jun, I don't. Just now, as soon as you heard, you ran inside. I thought you knew how to deliver a baby. Mo Rajin said. I don't know how to deliver a child, but I know how to check up on a pregnant woman. Hung Jun wailed. The Carpiao piped up. She's been in pain for 3 shishan now. How many months along? Mo Rajin asked. Almost 9, Tu Reinduct moaned. When Hung Jun and Mo Rajin left Tong Pass, Tu Reinduct had already begun to show, her belly beginning to swell. Their trip there and back took a good month and some. Counting the time that had passed, though her pregnancy hadn't yet come to term, it also wouldn't be considered an early birth. Mo Rajin's forehead was covered in sweat, and he said, Sayazai, I apologize. There are no doctors here, so I have to. Hurry up, Tu Reinduct wailed. Whatever you want to do, just do it. Hurry up and get this nuisance of a devil out of me. Mo Rajin, hey young man, go boil some water. Hung Jun, stay here, transfer some Genkai to Daimei to protect her heart meridian. Hung Jun, Jenga, do you know how to deliver a baby? That's great. Mo Rajin, I guess it counts. Tu Reinduct's face was sheet white. Big Wolf, have you delivered someone's child before? Mo Rajin replied, I've delivered babies for horses and sheep before. Tu Reinduct. Hung Jun. Mo Rajin said to Hung Jun, help out a bit, the sheep's water has already broken. Hung Jun hurried to nod, before he pressed down on Tu Reinduct's wrist, giving her Genkai. Tu Reinduct's moans gradually ceased. Hung Jun remembered what the medical texts had said, and he said, Zhao Zilong, go to the apothecary in the village and find some ginseng. The Carpiao bounced out the door. Hung Jun continued to give to Raindik Genkai, only to find that she had practiced some sort of technique ever since she was a child, because her power and Atai's Zoroastrian art seemed to stem from the same source, and both actually seemed a little akin to the pentacolor sacred light. When he swapped to using the true flames of the phoenix, that worked. Seizai, your Genkai is very abundant, Hung Jun said. Don't worry, you'll be able to give birth successfully. Ah, are you complimenting me? Tu Raindik moaned. But I don't usually practice any martial skills, and Tegla always tells me off for being lazy. Morajin said, wait for a little while longer. Bear with it. Tu Raindik said to Hung Jun, oh my motherfucking god, Hung Jun, you mustn't give birth to a kid for your entire life. Hung Jun was torn between laughing and crying. I can't give birth to them. I'm a guy. The Carpiao found some ginseng and came back. Hung Jun cut it into slices and had Tu Raindik keep them in her mouth. Both of them were so nervous that they were trembling, and Morajin said, give her a bit more. It's enough, Hung Jun said. If I give her a whole mouthful it'll be too easy for her to choke on it. Where's that bastard Tegla? Tu Raindik said. I'm going to beat his bitch ass head in. The other two. How did you two get left behind? Hung Jun asked the Carpiao. The Carpiao gestured and waved as it spoke. After a bit, that young man, who had been boiling some water outside, came back in, and he added in a few things. It was only then that the two learned that Tu Raindik and the Carpiao had only run into each other not too long ago. Almost half a month ago, Li Jinglong had Gao Xianzi send out a squad of men to escort Tu Raindik back to Chang'an. It was unfortunate, however, that during the Battle of Luoyang, Tu Raindik's pregnancy had been disturbed by the rush of the earth veins energy, and her baby developed faster than was usual. Her belly grew bigger day by day, and was very obvious. About halfway there, she began to feel that something wasn't quite right. The road was bumpy, and the soldiers were afraid of shouldering any responsibility. Tu Raindik also could not bear it, and she had them stop frequently. Along the way, they stopped at a little village and found a boat that would take them to Chang'an, because no one dared to have her on a horse cart any longer. The Carpiao, on the other hand, had steered the Jingwei along, only for it to have fallen in the fierce skirmish in front of the Tong Pass. When it awoke, it found that there were no more people on the battlefield, and Li Jinglong and the rest of them had also disappeared. It searched around for a bit, before it hopped into the Yellow River and swam upstream. When it came ashore, it suddenly saw the rebel troops charging through and slaughtering a village. By pure chance, Tu Raindik and that group of soldiers were currently waiting for a boat in that same village. As soon as the rebels arrived, the soldiers protecting Tu Raindik immediately fled. Tu Raindik barely managed to wave her whip around and whip a few of the rebels to death. Then, even more rebels and Yao beasts came pouring in. Hung Jun. Morajin's back was covered in cold sweat just from listening to this. The Carpiao said, then, upon seeing that there really was no other option, I let Lil Sis use your dragon scale. Did it come? Hung Jun asked. The Carpiao replied, the one that came was blind, and it wildly spread its breath around. It was really blind. It almost even burnt the two of us to death. It ended up burning the entire village. Hung Jun, that was Yinghuo. Morajin asked, where's the dragon then? After it finished burning the place, it went back, the Carpiao said. Hung Jun, it didn't say anything to you. The Carpiao, it didn't even notice me. Tu Raindik began to moan. Really, at such a life or death moment, we pulled through, thanks to Zilonga's dependability. Morajin. The Carpiao had had such high hopes in wanting to get up close and personal to the Dragon King. But, as it turned out, Yinghuo was blind to begin with, and after it blasted its breath everywhere, it almost burned it and Turandict to death as well. Thankfully, Turandict had dragged the Carpiao with her as they staggered away from the village. That day, the Carpiao had found an ox cart by the side of the road. The ox had been some several li away, munching unconcernedly on grass like it didn't know what had happened. The Carpiao then yoked up the ox and took Turandict along as they headed west. The world had gone dark by then, and it was hard to tell when the sun came out and when it set, because of all the dark clouds that filled the sky. The 800 li of Qinchuan seemed to be shrouded in endless night, and the Carpiao had strayed from the direction Chang'an lay in, wandering about. First it headed south, but just as it was about to turn westward, Turandict had begun to feel contractions. It was just then that a woodcutter of the Wu family village discovered them, and he brought Turandict back. Turandict's stomach had been grumbling with hunger by then, and the Carpiao didn't dare to speak, shrinking into Turandict's side. The two of them had then been brought here. This little lady said, that young woodcutter said, this is a tradition of her hometown, to bring a carp along with her, in order for the great carp god to watch over her and ensure that she will not suffer any illness or pain and have a successful birth. I didn't know that it was a Yaogwai, they were both having me on. I'm not a Yaogwai, the Carpiao protested, before it quieted and continued, I'm going to turn into a dragon. The dragon scale had been used up, and the Dragon King hadn't paid it any attention either, aside from almost turning it into flame-roasted fish. The Carpiao couldn't resist sighing. Turandot moaned out, I still have one here. Here, you can have it. I haven't been able to use it anyways. The Carpiao said, you should keep it, truly. Turandot began to feel pain once more, and she began to cry out. Morajin said, you can push now, says I. You'll be able to give birth before the sun rises. Now, push hard. Turandot began to shout again, Tagla. You heartless bastard. Do you know how much I've had to suffer for your sake? End chapter.